Second time in one night. Welcome to the barbecue pit. Your host, Mikey D. You know, with the fee. Bellator 272. We're going to talk about the card because it's got a bunch of well-known names. We're going to highlight a few fights in here. Let's kick it right off. Spike Carlisle versus Dan Moret. Carlisle is on a 3-fight winning streak since being released from the UFC. 3 finishes, 2 by submission, 1 by knockout. He's got a big size disadvantage coming into this fight, and he's 12-3 overall. He's going up against Dan Moret, who is 15-6, 2-0 since his release from the UFC. He's got a KO over Aristan Kulaveyan in UAE Warriors in 2019, and then a split decision win over Gatti Yamanashi in Bellator 256 in April. He's got 8 wins via submission. That is going to be a banger. Spike Carlisle is not in boring fights, and it's good to see Bellator picked him up. Kyle Crutchmaker versus Oliver Enkamp. Kai Kamaka III versus John DeZeus. Kai Kamaka III. This will be his first fight since being released from the UFC. He's 8-4-1. He went 1-2-1 in the UFC, and he's got 7 wins via decision. John DeZeus is 2-1 in Bellator, 14-9 overall, 7 decision wins, 5 knockouts, 2 submissions, big size advantage. Bellator veteran, both guys majority, decisions in their wins. Probably going to be a long, drawn-out fight, but a good fight in that division for Bellator. Alexander Shilaby versus Bobby King. Mike Hamill versus Keely Smota. Vincent Zejus versus Levon Chulakali. Josh Hill versus Jared Scoggin just got pushed to the main card. I want to talk a little bit about that. Jared Scoggins 10-1. Only loss was a decision loss to Jesse Bazy. 4 wins by knockout. Wins over Kenny Porter and Cody Durden. Most recently, he comes in as an underdog to Josh Hill, who is 20-4, 2-1 in Bellator. Lost his last fight to Ravion Stotts in May, and he has 13 wins via decision. Jared Scoggins is a very, very impressive prospect coming out of our side of the Southeast. I think he's actually trains up there in the upstate of South Carolina. But lots to look forward to. If I had to highlight one fight that you probably don't know about coming into Bellator 272, I would say it's Jared Scoggins versus Josh Hill. Make sure you check that one out. Jorino Lugo versus Tommy Espinoza on the card. Johnny Elbin versus Colin Huckboy Body. J.J. Wilson going up against Alfie Davis. Emmanuel Sanchez versus Jeremy Kennedy. I think this is going to be the co-main event. Yes, I am right. Jeremy Kennedy versus Emmanuel Sanchez. Sanchez comes in 20-6 on a 2-fight losing streak right now in 2021. Got a submission loss to Patricio Pitbull for the title, and then a decision loss to Mads Burnell in his most recent fight. He's 12-5 in Bellator. He's only lost to Pat Curran, Daniel Weschel, Mads Burnell, and then Pitbull twice. He's got submission win. He's got 8 submission wins in his career and 11 wins by decision, which leaves him with 1 knockout win. So he's predominantly a grappler. Going up against Jeremy Kennedy, who is dangerous anywhere. He's coming in with a 2-inch height and a 1-inch reach advantage. 16-3 overall record. Lost his last fight by a decision to Adam Burricks in April. He fought for the UFC and the PFL before coming to Bellator. He's 1-1 in Bellator. Decision win over Matt Baresi was his fight right before the Adam Burricks fight. He's got 6 wins by knockout, 8 wins by decision. That leaves him with 2 wins by submission. Predominantly a striker. Got good cardio. He's going to go to the finish. I like Jeremy Kennedy very much so. And I think that if Emmanuel Sanchez is on the decline, then Jeremy Kennedy will likely be taking advantage of that and moving himself up in the Bellator division. What division? Emmanuel Sanchez, lightweight, I think, Pitbull, lightweight, featherweight, something like that. Jeremy Kennedy made a run in PFL. He was in the UFC briefly. Now he's in Bellator. He's 1-1 in Bellator. If he gets a winning streak going, he can get himself to the top of that division pretty easily, especially with his third fight being Emmanuel Sanchez. So shout out Jeremy Kennedy. I definitely picked Jeremy Kennedy. If I was going to go back and pick a few guys from the fights back here, I'm going to say Jared Scoggins, represent, definitely going with Scoggins. Alexander Shilaby, however you say his name, I think he's going to run through Bobby King. Kai Kamaka is probably a pretty easy pick. And then Spike Carlisle coming in, slight favorite. I'm going to go Spike Carlisle there against Dan Moret. Sergio Pettis versus Horiguchi in the main event for the Bellator Bantamweight champion. This is a little bit confusing what happened with Horiguchi, because Horiguchi was the risen Bantamweight champ. He still is right now, but he was the champ. He then beats Darian Caldwell for the Bellator 135-pound championship. Loses in his next fight. I think he might have vacated right away, or loses to Kai Escara for the Risen belt. He loses that belt, so now he has no belts. He fights Escara again in the rematch, wins the Risen belt back. Was that his last fight? Vacated, won the belt again. Yes, in December of 2020. So we're looking at almost a year ago was his last fight that he won the Risen belt, the Risen Bantamweight title. Now he comes trying to win the Bellator. Now, I'm not a fan of this, I got to say. We'll talk about Sergio Pettis in a minute, but I am not a fan of Bellator. I like the cross-promoting. I like that you're letting your guys fight other guys, but it doesn't pay off when Horiguchi comes over, beats your Bantamweight champion, and then just vacates the belt right away, and then you got guys fighting again. You're just proving over and over again. If he could beat Sergio Pettis, you're just proving that, these guys, maybe not the entire promotion might not have better fighters than you, but as far as Bantamweight goes, I mean, there's no comparison between Risen and Bellator, because every time their champion comes over and fights your champion, they win. So Sergio Pettis in a desperate need of a win here for Bellator's legitimacy in the Bantamweight division. Not a fan. I'm a fan of co-promoting if you're going to do an entire card. If the entire card is going to be Bellator guys versus Risen guys, all the way down, different weight classes, couple title fights, that would be cool, because then you get to see, just like the Triad. I think the Triad thing is going to, that happened last weekend, is actually going to cause more people to start co-promoting, because, MMA won 4 out of 7 of the fights. So it's, it's cool. It's like when they do custom rules, MMA fighters tend to win, because Pulev won, but Pulev was coming off of a fucking boxing heavyweight championship fight in his last fight, and he's fighting Frank Mir. He's his second boxing fight, and he was predominantly a jiu-jitsu guy. So, of course, Pulev won. Mike Perry upset Mike Seals. A bunch of great fights on the Triad card, but that should prove to be the template for people who want to cross-promote in the world of MMA. Sergio Pettis won the title over Juan Archuleta by decision at Bellator 258 in May. He's 2-0 in Bellator prior to that. Submission win over Alfred Keziskan, and then a decision win over Ricky Badejas before they gave him Juan Archuleta. 14 wins by decision, 21-5 overall record, coming in with a slight height and a 3-inch reach advantage over Horiguchi. Definitely has the cardio. The grappling, I think, is going to be where it comes into play. Horiguchi has got great jiu-jitsu, amazing jiu-jitsu. And I think that's going to be tough for Sergio Pettis. If he can keep it standing and he can go all 5 rounds, I think Sergio Pettis has got a really, really good shot. But I think this is a really, really tough fight. And like I said, if Horiguchi wins again, what happens to the Bellator Bantamweight Championship? Do they just decide, let's just sign Horiguchi, let's try to pull him away from Risen completely, and he just defends the belt over here? I don't know. It's a big fucking mess. That's why I would never do it. But it is what it is, man. People choose to do what they do, and that is it. Another thing, the Bellator card is going to be on Friday. UFC on Saturday, Bellator on Friday. Make sure you catch me on Colorcast this weekend. I'm auditioning for a color commentating role for one of the UFC fights. They're moving into MMA. Again, the app is called Colorcast, and if you go on Colorcast and you search my at Michael Lynch, Lynch, you'll find me. When the fights go down on Saturday for the UFC, me and hopefully Ian will be color commentating for at least one of the fights as sort of a tryout to see if we can get put on as paid commentators. So that to look forward to. Check me out on Colorcast, and we will be back next Tuesday, for another UFC preview, maybe a Bellator preview, maybe something local, maybe an Island Fights, maybe a Game Bread Fight FC, maybe something like that. But we will see the future, what the future will hold. Until then, take care, brush your hair, stay barbecued, motherfuckers. You know what it is.